Let's watch an episode of Futurama, Parasites Lost. I'm excited to get wormy with it. Beep-whoop.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, egg salad from a gas station bathroom? Oh. You can't imagine the amount of bacteria that can grow on old egg salad. When we test our medical boards, there's certain foods that are labeled as potentially problematic, especially when you reheat them. Reheated rice, reheated potato salad, egg sandwiches, raw chicken, raw meats, obviously. Seeing an egg sandwich causes some kind of serious flashback for me to my med school days. All that's coming to mind from my medical boards is salmonella, 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 which causes massive inflammation in your intestines, which causes a massive fever. You can get really sick from it. Like you can go into sepsis from that kind of infection.
You're not gonna eat a sandwich from a truck stop men's room, are you?
What's the worst thing that could happen?
A lot of things can happen. Not only can that salmonella be there, but remember, every time a public toilet, or any toilet for that matter, gets flushed, the bacteria that's inside that toilet gets shot out across the bathroom. And if there are those hand air dryers that everyone thinks are all so fancy, they just blow around that bacteria, so know that there is E. coli everywhere. I kind of miss the days of when we were able to close the toilets before flushing them in public bathrooms.
Ugh. It's like a party in my mouth and everyone's throwing up.
Oh, that's so gross. That's an illness that's gonna have very rapid onset. So if someone eats something suspicious and then gets sick 3-4 days later, I wouldn't necessarily think it's because of the food. Suspicious food intake usually causes illness within the next 24 hours.
There, fixed forever. Oh, marmalade.
Dr. Zoidberg, a medical corporation? You know, these days we don't have individual doctors running corporations. In fact, every doctor is seemingly joining huge medical networks, which recently there was a law passed by the FTC that may change things around. Because when doctors used to work for a medical organization and then they would get unhappy, they would struggle to find the courage to leave because they would sign something known as a non-compete clause. But now the FTC is saying all non-competes are illegal and all of them don't apply. So now doctors can technically leave and take their patients with them, where before that wasn't a possibility. Oh,
the hypochondriac's back.
That's not a hypochondriac. My guy has a pole going through him, and it's not a Grey's Anatomy episode.
So what is it this time?
Well, my lead pipe hurts a little.
That's normal. Next patient.
Sounds like my dad whenever I was complaining to him. For those who don't know, my dad is a physician, and anytime I would complain to him about anything hurting, Dad, my neck hurts, you're fine. Dad, I don't feel good, I have a fever, go to school, you're fine. Now that I'm thinking about it, like, if I had a fever, I was contagious, you probably shouldn't send me to school, man. Whoa, kind of reminds me of that Phineas Gage story where the guy got the giant thing, the railroad track, like blown right through his head and was able to survive for a pretty lengthy period of time with some personality changes. There were some questionable tidbits to that story, and I covered that in a whole other YouTube video, but very, very interesting stuff, how one person can survive.
Fry, did you eat anything unusual recently?
No,
What about that bathroom egg salad from the truck stop?
I've had better.
Egg salad? Zoidberg will have to examine your gastrointestinal tract.
Here's what I would do to examine someone's GI tract. Before palpating the area, I would observe the area, meaning I would look for rashes on the area. Then I would take my stethoscope and listen to the 4 quadrants and see if there were bowel sounds present and if they're increased, decreased, or normal. Then I would lightly palpate the area. Then I would deeply palpate the area. Then I would do some special tests where we can actually decide if someone's having a gallbladder issue, if they're having appendicitis. And from that physical exam, we can then point to certain GI conditions, matching up with, of course, the subjective history that was told to us.
We'll need to have a look inside you with this camera. Guess again.
So upper endoscopy can check out the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine. But once you want to go into the colon, the large intestine, the rectal region, you're going to have to use probably a full-on colonoscopy from down below. What's pretty cool is when they do a colonoscopy, they actually blow air in to make sure that they can see the area completely, because you want to be able to catch cancers, polyps, etc. And what's interesting is the amount of time that a doctor spends pulling the scope out, meaning slowly rechecking the area, pretty closely correlates with their ability to not miss lesions.
Watch for any subtle irregularity in Fry's bowel.
Star Wars Mansion. One of the more common things that we find on colonoscopies is something known as diverticulosis, where you have like a little outpouching inside the large intestine. That usually happens as a result of over time bearing down, especially if someone has constipation quite often. And on its own, it's usually not problematic, but if it gets infected, that diverticulosis can become diverticulitis, and that does require, in many cases, inpatient management and IV antibiotics.
Worms?
So the eggs in that egg salad sandwich were...
Correct! Worm eggs! And the mayonnaise was probably none too fresh either.
It's nauseating, man! Is there no way to get rid of the disgusting maggots?
There are all sorts of worms that humans get. We call them parasites because they're parasitic in nature, meaning that they eat off of our food supply. You know, they happen, especially if you have poor sanitation, if you're consuming poorly cooked meats, but we do have medications that treat them.
We'll have to travel deep inside Fry in this.
Oh, this is like a capsule endoscopy. One of the ways that we can look inside someone's GI tract is to swallow a pill camera. It basically generates these images for the internal part of the bowels, and you're able to see if there's any issues. I've seen it used for instances of bleeding. Is there something that we need to go in and treat, especially if a patient is a little bit more fragile? Whoa.
Yeah.
So this is what they mean when they say, I wish I was a fly on the wall.
Your net suits will let you experience Fry's worm-infested bowels as if you were actually wriggling through them.
Why not just give him like albendazole or one of these anti-parasitic medications and be done with it?
Is everyone present?
Definitely.
Yes.
Here's the plan. We'll enter the ear, drip down the back of the throat,
Enter the ear? Why not just go into the mouth? Why the weird entrance?
and make for the bowel. There, we'll irritate the pelvic splanchnic ganglion and cause an intestinal spasm, expelling, among other things, the parasites.
You know, when the GI tract is irritated, it spasms on its own and it gets irritated and it creates diarrhea, and diarrhea washes the area out. That's why diarrhea is like a survival thing. But it can also harm you, obviously, if you're not able to rehydrate.
Fry can't know anything about the mission. If he finds out, the worms will try to defend themselves. Leela, your role is to distract Fry so he doesn't notice.
Aren't they microscopic? How does she see them? Or maybe her one eye is just like really good.
Look, a starling!
Really?
Oh wow, good accuracy. All right, so that's earwax. Earwax is protective. Everyone wants to get rid of it. I don't know why. There has to be some kind of negative PR about earwax, but unless it's fully clogging your ear, it's there to do its job, which is protecting the ear canal, keeping insects out. Actually, earwax prevents water from damaging the ear canal. So by removing it and keeping it clean, you're actually making it more susceptible to getting infected.
What if we go for a walk, possibly, because it's such a lovely day, perhaps?
I'd love to.
Oh!
We've got to get someplace where he won't stick his finger.
It's hopeless! Abandoned ship!
Wait, we just have to get past the eardrum.
How are they gonna get past it? Oh, they just went straight through it.
What are those worms doing to Fry's brain?
They're giving it a complete tune-up.
There are actually some worms that can actually make their way to the brain. One that comes to mind is like the pork tapeworm. It can cause cysts in the brain. So this episode has some truth to it.
Brace yourselves, everyone. We're entering the interior of Fry's nose.
We're at finger alert 5.
Let's just pray nothing stimulates the delicate smell receptors. Nobody make us smell.
Not the smell receptors, the cilia. You bother the cilia, oof, they get that itch in there, makes you sneeze. Little pollen action.
Quick, we can escape through that nasal capillary into the sinus.
Strange. Usually you don't know anything about human anatomy.
I learned it from a decongestant commercial.
The decongestants, the way they work is they constrict the capillaries, the small blood vessels inside the nose. And when that happens, you have less mucus production, so people feel like they're clear. But usually, if you use it for a period of time, you get used to it, you need more of it, and then if you stop using it abruptly, you get this rebound congestion with a ton of mucus just coming out. That's why I'm not a fan of those nasal sprays, the nasal clearing nasal sprays. I love the nasal salines.
Ah, the stomach. Scenic gateway to the bowel.
Why is there a penny in the stomach? Oh, the worms are sending their defense.
Abandoned ship!
This reminds me of like an H. pylori infection, which is a bacteria. And what's interesting is they actually protect themselves from the gastric juices of the stomach. So they have their own protective mechanism. I don't know that worms have this in the GI tract.
Don't give up now. We're but a stone's throw from the pyloric sphincter.
Okay, so that's the sphincter of the stomach, okay.
There it is, the stately capital of Fry's bowel, a heavily guarded fortress surrounding the pelvic splanchnic ganglion.
I've heard of that. Who said I haven't?
If we can stimulate that nerve, the bowel will convulse, expelling the entire worm society.
The bowel is made up of smooth muscle, and it has a motion that is pretty consistent called peristalsis, where by this like unique movement, it pushes food through it. So the fact that they're saying convulse, I don't know exactly what they mean. Cramp?
Let's smush some worms.
Worms to battle stations!
Next time I give a patient an anti-parasitic, like some albendazole thing, I'm gonna literally imagine that this is what's happening. Or just show this scene to the patient. They're gonna be like, what are you showing?
The nerve is through here. Where's Zoidberg?
Yippee-ki-yay! You'll never guess where I've been.
Is that a sperm?
I love you.
You do?
Yes, but it's only recently that I've been able to articulate my thoughts. I love you, Leela, and I always have.
Fry, that's the sweetest, most wonderful... Wait, recently? Like since you ate that toilet sandwich?
Yeah. I don't know why, but my life really turned around that day.
Why are the worms helping him? You know, if you eat a tapeworm, it can grow so long, like many feet in length, and it can eat so much of your nutrients to take away your nutrients, where you can become anemic. You can actually start losing mega amounts of weight because the tapeworm is just feeding on what's supposed to be your sustenance.
Stay here.
Freshen your narcotina?
Please, I need something to settle my stomach.
Oh. I feel like if you suffer with IBS, this is what's going on in your stomach just all the time. Oh! Oh!
Oh, I'm okay.
Leela, you ignorant dope!
Did you ever stop to think that Fry is better off with worms?
I feel like this deserves to be its own TikTok thing. They have the parasite cleanses where people are doing these ridiculous things to cleanse from parasites, which is just strange. Now they're having parasite love videos where people end up loving their parasites.
Oh, Fry, I love what you've become.
What I've become.
What is it?
There's just something I have to find out.
What is he gonna poop?
Who controls this bowel?
Who wants to know? I am the Lord Mayor of Cologne.
Cologne!
You mean colon?
State your business.
Your Excellency, have you ever been in love?
No.
Doesn't he know you should never negotiate with terrorists? They're terrorizing his colon.
A wonderful girl loves me, but I need to know if it's really me she loves or just what you worms have made of me. That's why, with all due respect, I'm asking you to leave.
I wish I was more well-versed on worms to know what kind of worm this resembles. I'm gonna guess roundworm. So I'm gonna pop up a picture here, and if I'm wrong, I apologize, but that's what my limited worm appearance educated mind thinks.
No one can make me leave.
What kind of elevator exists in the colon that gets you to the brain?
Everyone out of my body or the brain gets it.
He's bluffing.
What, he's gonna kill himself? Oh, he's cutting neurons. The axons. The myelin sheets!
You've damaged your brain, universe, but no more than a week of binge drinking or 5 minutes on a cell phone.
I was just working my way toward the medulla oblongata.
Not the medulla oblongata. Oblongata? That reminds me of that scene from Waterboy.
Oblongata.
I hope Satan has a nice colon, because that's where you're gonna be living.
What would they care? If he's asking them to leave, they're gonna die anyway. Well, at least pinworms can survive like 2 to 3 weeks in the outside environment. That's actually why they spread so quickly in childcare centers, because a child scratches their butt and they just laid those eggs there. The eggs get underneath the fingernails, then the child gets on their clothes and they spread it to another child.
Stop! We'll leave. But one day you'll be eating a fast food burger and boom! You'll be crawling with us again. Ever wonder what makes special sauce so special? Yo.
Yo. I would usually say me, even if you're trying to do it in Spanish. Yo is I. There's actually some phenomenal stories of animals being found inside humans. Click here to check that out, and as always, stay happy and healthy.